Kevin, I'll go to you for some of your expertise. We were both talking off air about some of the commitments that have been made in terms of recruiting. The most recent one looks like Mookie Cooper, wide receiver, became the 4th national top 100 prospect overall, who is a wide receiver who is committed to Ohio State. I can't think of anything like this in my memory of Ohio State dominating one position on the board in a recruiting class like this.
You'd have to go back to the 2014 class when they brought in the likes of Paris Campbell and Johnny Dixon, and Noah Brown was in that class, and Curtis Samuel, and
Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin. They had 5 guys that ended up playing H, wide receiver, whatever in that class. But the difference with this one is in 14, some of these guys were 3 stars. They weren't Rivals 100 or top 247 guys or whatever, like we see in this class with 4 guys that are in that top 100 designation. And then, of course, you have Cameron Martinez, a guy who can play on offense or defense. It looks like his first opportunity is going to be on defense. I go back to a couple years ago when they put together that defensive tackle class with Antoine Jackson coming over in the JUCO side, Tommy Togiai, Teron Vincent, where they had a real dominating class at one position. But we've never really seen this at receiver the way that it's set up there. And, you have to give all the credit in the world, not only to, Ryan Day as the head coach, but Brian Hartline, and he's being assisted by Keenan Bailey. They've done a great job of putting this class together.
When you think about these wide receivers, and Tony, I'm going to come to you in just one second about this group. And as he made a very good point, Cameron Martinez, who they also just got on July 4th as well from Michigan, Muskegon, Michigan, he could be I saw a videotape of him playing running back, wide receiver, and also there's a thought that he could start out as a defensive back at Ohio State. But, that's a year down the line, obviously, to see which way that's going to go. One of the thoughts I think about, 4 wide receivers, and typically Ohio State has played with 3 wide receivers, a running back, and a tight end, but they've got 4 wide receivers committed between Cooper, G. Scott Jr., who with his camp showings is now moving closer and closer to getting, 4 stars and possibly even in the ballpark to maybe one day even be a 5-star. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know. Just, Tony, what is your thought when you take 4 guys like that and they each seem to have different disciplines, different ways that they could play at wide receiver? I mean, it's a potential that, 3 of these guys could be on the field together at one time down the line. I don't think anybody's expecting them all to come in and start in 2020, but, 2021, 2022, as Ohio State tries to continue this dynasty or whatever it is you want to call this flow of championship teams that they've built. How do you reconcile how they're going to keep all these guys happy going forward?
Well, it's, you go back to like 2014 when everybody talks about Devin Smith and Michael Thomas and Evan Spencer, but there was also Corey Smith and Jalen Marshall and Dontre Wilson. So that starting 3 was actually a starting 6 that they rotated, and they've continued to rotate. So when you bring in 4 guys, I could see them all on the field together, actually, because they do all do different things. They are all different kinds of players. G. Scott is basically your prototypical X, like your Michael Thomas. Julian Fleming can do anything. He could be a Z who could run your deep routes. I mean, he was the 2nd fastest guy at the opening, the 2nd fastest receiver at the opening, I believe. When I see Jackson Smith-Njigba, I see KJ Hill, like a faster KJ Hill who can play inside or outside. Then Mookie Cooper is your slot guy. They're hoping the Rondale Moore type who can, catch a quick screen and take it a long ways. He fits into the H-back, different kind of H-back than Paris Campbell, different kind than KJ Hill. But that's what they're looking for. He's a perfect complement. They all complement each other really, really well. And I think there's more than enough room for them, because you still got to remember there's Garrett Wilson and there's Jamison Williams in the 2019 class who are going to be freshmen this year. You take those 6, I mean, those those two classes alone, and then they've got more guys coming in 2021, but just those last 6 guys, that alone is a reason why Cameron Martinez starts on defense. But you talking about Cameron Martinez, you look at his film, and I mentioned it on Twitter when he committed, he reminded me of Antoine Randall L, because you see him at quarterback and he's doing all of these things. And I don't know how many people watching this know who Antoine Randall L was to Indiana, but he was amazing to watch. Right. He was special. And, maybe a more recent comparison would be Jalen Marshall, except I think Cameron Martinez is faster. And for a guy like that to maybe not get a look at on offense right away tells you how good this receiver haul is. And Kevin, getting back to when you guys were talking about particular groups of recruits, like a position group where the defensive line in 2017 or 2018, whenever it was, 2018, I could go maybe like the corners in 2017 when you had Okudah, Sean Wade, Kendall Sheffield, Marcus Williamson, and Amir Reep was pretty good. But the one that I go back to is the 2002 linebacker haul of Mike DeAndrea,
going
Mike
old
Kudla,
school. I love it.
AJ Hawk, Stan White, and Bobby Carpenter. And, Kudla eventually moved to defensive end. Stan White eventually moved to tight end and fullback. But this receiver group is up there with, you're trying to just figure out best in school history in terms of particular position groups, because obviously they haven't even played a senior season yet, but potentially it's one that you have to, like, where do they rank in OSU history in terms of one group of recruits at a position?
Well, one thing to remember too, I want to jump in talking about the receivers, is they've got 4 guys on scholarship this year that this will be their last year, with KJ Hill, Austin Mack, CJ Saunders, and Ben Victor. So after that, they only have 6 receivers who are on the chart right now. Cameron Babb has not been able to catch a break. He has just been dealing with injury after injury. You have to wonder what his future is going to be. So now we're down to 5. Elijah Gardner, I think this is a show up or maybe portal type of year for him. And I don't like, throwing players out there at this point, but just with everything that's coming behind him. So, even with that, we have Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Jalen Harris, who's another player that has a lot of potential, hasn't broken through yet. And then Chris Olave, who came on late in the season after the injury to Austin Mack, had 2 touchdowns against Michigan, had 1 against Northwestern. I mean, he's going to be somebody who's very much in the mix. That's why Ohio State's able to go out and take 4 receivers this year, with whatever you want to classify Cameron Martinez is, why they're going to be in good shape in 2021 when they already have Jalen Ballard in the mix. They look like the odds-on favorite to get Marvin Harrison Jr., who's teammates with Kyle McCord out there in Philadelphia. I mean, I think that we're going to see so much turnover with what this receiver room is going to look like when the 20 and 21 classes are in there. And, we're not going to remember the clown show that Urban Meyer talked about when he took over, and the leading receiver at Ohio State having something like 12, 14 receptions, something of, just a really low number. I mean, things are changing.
Yeah, but to be fair, there was 3 receivers with 14 catches, so give them some credit.
It was a clown show. I don't know any other way to put it. It is exciting because these receivers impact the game in a way that when you have a quarterback that can throw the football, they can stretch the field, and they can change. I mean, you think about the TCU game last year. Ohio State was it was a nut cruncher, and they hit that little short play to Paris Campbell, and he turned it for 1,000,000 yards, down there in Jerry World, and the game turned on a dime. So when you have guys that can make either catch balls over the top or take short plays and turn them into explosive 30, 40, 50-yard plays, it changes the game immediately. And a guy that we haven't talked about who verbaled on June 21st, Massillon, Washington, Jaden Ballard for 2021, probably one of the top prospects in Ohio for 2021 in the top 5, certainly. And my guess is he's going to be a highly rated wide receiver in that 2021 class as well. Kevin, I'm going to come back to you because this run is not over. We are in what is currently a dead period for college football recruiting. And I think that the NCAA, with the help of coaches everywhere, had mandated that the month of July needs to be a dead period. No visits, no coaches off campus, because everybody needs to have this month to go out, take their kids to the swimming pool, and go on vacation, and et cetera, et cetera. Because everyone knows August 1st, the grind is real, and it goes all the way through the signing period in February until these guys get really any downtime. I mean, it is continual from here. I mean, at Ohio State, you don't get Thanksgiving off now since they moved the Michigan game to the Thanksgiving weekend about 8 or 10 years ago. So it is a dead period now, but there will be verbal commitments. We've got, I know when we were talking off air, 2 or 3 guys. Kevin, you had some information, I know, about guys who are getting close to making decisions, and Ohio State's got 19 commitments now. And before this month is over, before the beginning of August, before practice for everybody begins, this thing could actually be 21 or 22 commitments.
And actually, the count I think I have them at is 21, with the kicker out of Cincinnati, Seibert, who'll gray shirt this year, so he won't count against these numbers right now. But yeah, they could be very close to the top, and then they can really just swing for the fences on a couple more. One player who hasn't announced a date yet, Court Williams out of California. He looks like he could be a July decision, but for players that have already announced when they're going to make it official, you have Lathan Ransom out of Arizona, a safety. He announces on the 16th. On the 30th of this month, you have Jalen Knighton, who is an all-purpose back out of Deerfield Beach, South Florida. Things look really good there. And then on August 2nd, you have Bijan Robinson, who's also out of Arizona, one of the nation's top running backs. He'll make his decision at that point. Plus, too, there's some defensive ends that are out there with Kedrick Bingley-Jones, who's supposed to announce on the 3rd. You have Jacoby Cowan, who that might drag into the season. But Ohio State is sitting at the point where they could probably have 4 more commits by, the first week of August.
And what's crazy is, I know on our network, 24/7, we have the crystal ball. I know on Rivals, you guys have
Futurecast.
Yeah, Futurecast, a predictor type thing where people can make predictions. I know that, at least I didn't look on the Rivals one yet, but I know on the 24/7 one, several people have come in over the top on Bijan Robinson to Ohio State. And it was like an epidemic yesterday that's where everybody was going with it. And I think that touched off some real tremors on the Texas message boards. One, about how, now this is an Arizona kid. This isn't Garrett Wilson. This isn't, some of the other Texas.
J.K. Dobbins out of LaGrange.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, this isn't a homegrown kid, but it's a kid that they want, that they need. And, the comments were like, worked again by Ohio State. Stan Drayton, what's he doing?